I never thought my own sister would become my worst enemy over a man. What started as innocent smiles at family dinners turned into lies, manipulation, and a betrayal so deep it nearly destroyed us both. But the ending? No one saw it coming, especially not her. Before we dive in, if you've ever dealt with family betrayal or complicated relationships, this story will hit home. Stay until the end because the twist will change how you see forgiveness forever. Now, let's begin. Growing up, Natalie and I were inseparable. I'm Lily, the older sister by 3 years, and from the outside, we probably looked like the perfect siblings. We shared clothes, secrets, and dreams about the future. But underneath all of that, there was always something I couldn't quite name, a tension that would surface in small moments. When I got accepted into art school, Natalie barely spoke to me for a week. When I landed my first big job at a gallery downtown, she made a comment about how I always got the lucky breaks. I brushed it off every time. She was my little sister. I thought it was just normal sibling stuff, that underlying competition that exists in most families. I never realized how deep her resentment actually ran, not until Daniel came into my life. I met Daniel on a Thursday evening at a charity art auction benefiting children's hospitals. I wasn't even planning to go, but my colleague convinced me at the last minute. Daniel was standing in front of a watercolor painting of a lighthouse, completely absorbed in it. I remember walking up beside him and saying something about how the artist captured loneliness beautifully. He turned to me with this genuine smile and said he'd been staring at it for 10 minutes, trying to figure out why it made him feel so calm and sad at the same time. We talked for 2 hours straight that night about art, about his work as an architect, about how we both volunteered at the same community center on different days. It felt effortless, natural, like finding someone who spoke the same language you'd been speaking alone for years. 3 months into dating Daniel, I knew I was in love. Real love. Not the butterflies and uncertainty kind, but the steady, peaceful kind that makes you feel at home. He'd bring me coffee in the morning with a terrible drawing on the cup, stick figures of us holding hands. He remembered every little thing I mentioned, like how I loved rainy Sundays, or how I always wanted to visit the lavender fields up north. My friends noticed the change in me. I was lighter, happier, and naturally, I wanted to share that happiness with my family. The family dinner happened on a warm Saturday in May. My parents were thrilled to finally meet Daniel. They'd heard me talk about him nonstop for months. I remember feeling nervous but excited as we walked up to my childhood home. Natalie opened the door before we could even knock, wearing a dress I'd never seen before and makeup that looked professionally done. She hugged me quickly and then turned all her attention to Daniel, shaking his hand a little too long, laughing a little too loud at everything he said. At the time, I thought she was just being her outgoing self. Natalie had always been the charismatic one, the life of every party. I actually felt proud that she was making such an effort to welcome him. Dinner went smoothly. My dad grilled Daniel about architecture, my mom asked about his family, and Natalie kept finding reasons to touch his arm when she laughed, kept steering the conversation back to herself, kept mentioning things she and Daniel apparently had in common. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. What was I going to do? Accuse my sister of flirting with my boyfriend at a family dinner? It seemed ridiculous. Daniel was clearly in love with me. He held my hand under the table, kissed my forehead when he thought no one was looking. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. But then things started to shift. Small things at first. Natalie began texting Daniel. She said it started innocently. She was thinking about switching careers and wanted advice about design programs. Daniel, being the kind person he was, responded and tried to help. Then she started asking more questions about his projects, about his favorite buildings. She'd send him articles she thought he'd find interesting. I showed him some of the messages and they seemed harmless enough. I didn't want to be that girlfriend who got jealous of her own sister, so I said nothing. Then Natalie started showing up places. The coffee shop Daniel mentioned he liked, she'd suddenly be there when he stopped by. The gym he went to every Tuesday and Thursday, she joined the same one. When I mentioned it to her, she laughed it off, said the city was small, coincidences happen, said she'd always wanted to try that gym anyway. I wanted to believe her. She was my sister. We'd been through everything together. But my gut knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to face it. The real problem started about a month after that family dinner. Daniel became distant, not in an obvious way, but in small, noticeable shifts. He'd take longer to text back. He seemed distracted when we were together. When I asked if everything was okay, he said he was stressed about work. I believed him because I wanted to, but then one night he asked me if I was happy in our relationship. The question came out of nowhere. We were watching a movie on his couch and he just paused it and turned to me with this concerned look. I was confused. Of course I was happy. Why would he even ask that? He said he felt like I'd been pulling away, that I seemed uncertain about us. I was stunned. I hadn't been pulling away at all. If anything, I'd been falling deeper in love with him every day. We talked in circles that night, both of us confused about where this miscommunication was coming from. I left his apartment feeling unsettled, like the ground beneath us had suddenly become unstable. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't find out until later, was that Natalie had been planting seeds. She'd been texting Daniel, casually mentioning that I'd seemed off lately, that I'd told her I wasn't sure about the relationship, that I'd been talking about maybe taking a break. All lies, complete fabrications designed to create doubt in his mind. And it was working. Every time Daniel and I had a small disagreement or quiet moment, he'd wonder if Natalie was right, if I was secretly unhappy and just not telling him. Meanwhile, Natalie was playing the concerned sister to me. She'd ask how things were going with Daniel, and when I mentioned we'd been having some weird tension, she'd sigh sympathetically and say that relationships were hard, that maybe we were moving too fast, that maybe I should take some time to think about what I really wanted. She was poisoning us from both sides, and we had no idea. The truth came out on a random Tuesday afternoon. Natalie had come over to my apartment to borrow a necklace for a date she had that night. While she was in my bathroom, her phone, which she'd left on my kitchen counter, lit up with a message. I wasn't trying to snoop, I really wasn't, but the preview on her screen showed a text to her friend Rebecca. It said, "Stage 2 complete, he's starting to doubt her. Give it 2 more weeks and he'll be looking for someone who actually appreciates him, and I'll be right there." My blood went cold. I grabbed her phone and opened it. No passcode because she never thought she'd need one around me. The messages were all there. Conversations with her friends about her plan to win Daniel over. Screenshots she'd taken of his social media posts with captions like, "My future husband doesn't know it yet." But the worst part? The messages between her and Daniel. I scrolled back through weeks of conversation. Her messages were flirtatious in a way that could be denied if confronted. His were friendly but clearly uncomfortable in places, like he was trying to be polite without encouraging her. And then I found her messages to him about me, all the lies she'd told, all the doubt she'd planted. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This was my sister, the person I'd protected and defended my entire life, the person I thought I knew better than anyone, and she'd been systematically trying to destroy my relationship and steal the man I loved. When Natalie came out of the bathroom, I was standing there holding her phone. The look on her face when she saw me, it wasn't shock, it was fear of being caught. She immediately started making excuses, said I was misunderstanding, said she was just trying to help, said she never meant for any of it to go this far. But I cut her off. I asked her one simple question: why? And that's when she finally broke. The tears came, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration and self-pity. She said she was tired of always being in my shadow, tired of watching me get everything easily while she had to fight for scraps. She said I didn't understand what it was like to be the younger sister who was always compared and always found lacking. She said when she met Daniel and saw how he looked at me, she wanted that for herself. She convinced herself that she deserved it more because she needed it more. I stood there listening to her, And I felt something inside me shatter, not just my trust in her, but my entire understanding of our relationship. All those years I thought we were close, she'd been silently resenting me, hating me even. And instead of talking to me, instead of dealing with her own insecurities, she tried to destroy my happiness. I told her to leave. She begged me not to tell Daniel, not to tell our parents. She said she'd stop, that she'd never contact him again, that we could just forget this ever happened. But it was too late for that. The damage was done. I told her I needed her out of my apartment and out of my life. The next few days were a blur. I told Daniel everything, showed him the messages, watched his face go through confusion, anger, and then sadness. He apologized for doubting me, for not seeing what Natalie was doing. But the trust between us was broken. Every time he looked at me, I could see him wondering what else might be a lie. Every time I looked at him, I felt the ghost of my sister's betrayal. We tried to push through it. We really did. But 2 months later, we both admitted what we already knew. We couldn't get past it. The relationship that had felt so natural and easy now felt heavy and complicated. We ended things quietly, sadly, both of us grieving what we'd lost. My parents were devastated when they found out what Natalie had done. My mom cried. My dad didn't speak to Natalie for weeks. They tried to mediate, tried to get us to talk, but I refused. I cut Natalie out completely. Blocked her number, unfollowed her on everything, avoided family gatherings where she'd be. I needed space. I needed to heal, and I couldn't do that with her anywhere near me. 6 months passed. I threw myself into work, into my art, into rebuilding my life. I started therapy to deal with the betrayal and the family trauma I'd apparently been ignoring for years. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. A different version of myself, maybe, more guarded, more aware, but myself nonetheless. During those 6 months, I heard things about Natalie through my parents. She'd lost her job after her manipulative behavior apparently extended to her workplace. She was having severe panic attacks. She'd pushed away most of her friends with her constant drama and lies. She hit rock bottom hard, and part of me, the part that was still angry, felt like it was exactly what she deserved. Karma had finally caught up to her. Then one day, a letter arrived at my apartment, handwritten, from Natalie. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The letter was 8 pages long, front and back, and it was the most honest thing she'd ever written to me. She didn't make excuses. She didn't blame her behavior on anything but her own insecurity and jealousy. She took full accountability for what she'd done. She talked about how comparison had been eating her alive since we were kids, how she'd never learned to be happy for me without simultaneously feeling terrible about herself. She admitted that trying to take Daniel wasn't even really about him. It was about proving to herself that she could have something I had, that she could be chosen over me just once. She wrote that she didn't expect forgiveness. She didn't even think she deserved it. She just needed me to know that she understood the depth of what she'd done, that she'd destroyed the most important relationship in her life over her own toxic insecurities, that she was getting help, that she was trying to become someone different, someone better. The letter ended with a simple line. "I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I'm sorry anyway. I hope you find all the happiness I tried to steal from you." I read that letter 5 times, and each time I felt something shift inside me. I was still hurt, still angry, but I also felt exhausted from carrying all that hatred around. My therapist had been telling me for weeks that forgiveness wasn't about Natalie, it was about me, about releasing the weight so I could actually move forward instead of staying stuck in this bitter, angry place. It took me 2 weeks to respond. I agreed to meet her at a cafe downtown, neutral territory. When I walked in and saw her sitting at a corner table, I barely recognized her. She looked smaller somehow, tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her usual confidence was completely gone. We sat across from each other in awkward silence for a minute before I finally spoke. I told her exactly how much she'd hurt me, how her betrayal had affected not just my relationship with Daniel, but my ability to trust anyone, how she'd made me question every relationship in my life, wondering who else might secretly resent me. I didn't hold back, and to her credit, she sat there and listened. She didn't defend herself, didn't interrupt, didn't try to make it about her pain. She just listened and nodded and let her tears fall silently. When I finished, I took a breath and said the words I never thought I'd be able to say. I forgive you. But then I added, but things will never be the same between us. I explained that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean going back to how things were. It meant I was choosing to let go of the anger for my own peace, but that rebuilding any kind of relationship would take years, and it would require her to continue doing the work on herself. She nodded and said she understood. She said she'd take whatever I was willing to give, even if that was just civil conversations at family gatherings. That was a year ago. Today, Natalie and I have a carefully boundaried relationship. We see each other at family events, we text occasionally, but we're not close. Maybe we never will be again, and I've made peace with that. She's still in therapy, still working on herself. I can see the effort she's making, and I respect it. But trust isn't rebuilt overnight, and some fractures leave permanent marks. As for me, I found peace in ways I didn't expect. I'm in a new relationship now with someone named Christopher who values honesty above everything else. I told him about Natalie early on, and he understood. He's patient with my trust issues and never makes me feel guilty for having boundaries. Daniel moved to another city for a job opportunity about 8 months ago. We exchanged messages before he left. Closure, finally. No hard feelings, just two people acknowledging that we could have been great if circumstances had been different. And you know what I learned through all of this? Forgiveness is complicated. It's not this clean, beautiful moment where everything is suddenly okay. It's messy and gradual, and sometimes it feels like you're taking one step forward and 2 steps back. But holding on to anger and betrayal was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Natalie was already suffering from her own actions. Her jealousy had destroyed her from the inside before it destroyed us, and me staying bitter was only hurting me. Some relationships survive betrayal, some don't. Both outcomes are valid. There's no right answer. You don't owe anyone forgiveness, not even family, but sometimes you owe yourself the freedom that comes with letting go. I chose to forgive Natalie not because she deserved it immediately, but because I deserved peace. I deserved to move forward without that weight on my shoulders. And in forgiving her, I found something I didn't expect. I found myself again. Looking back now, I don't regret how things unfolded. I wish it hadn't happened, sure. I wish I'd gotten to keep that relationship with Daniel. I wish my sister had dealt with her issues before they exploded into our lives. But pain taught me things that happiness never could. It taught me about boundaries, about the difference between loving someone and trusting them, about how family doesn't mean unlimited access to hurt you. And most importantly, it taught me that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not a pardon you grant someone else. Natalie will spend years proving she's changed, and maybe one day we'll be close again. Or maybe we won't. Either way, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm free. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about love, betrayal, and second chances. Drop a comment below. Would you have forgiven your sister, or was the betrayal too deep? I read every single one. Thanks for listening to my story, and remember, forgiveness is for you, not them. Some scars don't fully heal, they just teach you where to set your boundaries, and sometimes that's the most important lesson of all.